Chapter 1921. It was the same if Daisy had drunk too much champagne. If it were red wine, she would have been drunk by now. Her head was dizzy, and her cheeks felt hot by the time she left the banquet. When Mitchell was leaving, he stopped for a moment and followed after her. Daisy came to the parking lot, and there was a silver Cayenne not far away. Mitchell could sense that the man who came to pick her up must be the one who had been supporting her from the back. He hastily made a few quick steps to catch up to Daisy and grabbed her shoulder to give her some support. "Miss Vanderbilt, you're drunk. Let me get you into the car." Daisy was stunned. Before she could do anything, Edison appeared out of nowhere and pushed Mitchell away. "It's okay, sir. My master will send her back." Mitchell looked at Edison in astonishment. "Master?" Just as he expected, the man was someone of great status. Edison waited until Daisy got into the car before heading into the driver's seat. Mitchell stood stiffly on his spot even after the car had gone away. Unfortunately, he couldn't get to see the person in the car. Edison looked at Mitchell through the rear mirror and asked, "What is that guy up to again?" It was very obvious that he was doing that on purpose. Daisy had drunk too much champagne. Lying in Nala's arms, she burped. "He wants to know who my husband is." Edison was rendered speechless. It seemed to him that Mitchell was a little bit too nosy. However, he could understand him as well after giving it another thought. Even the media and press wanted to know who Daisy's boyfriend was. After all, Daisy had a special identity, and she had been receiving a lot of attention. However, the man she dated was shrouded in mystery, so it went without saying that it would cause a lot of speculation. Knowles patted her back to help her feel better. A faint smile appeared on his face when he heard what she said. "I guess Mitchell wants to know about my identity because he wants to sell the news to the media." Edison still found it difficult to understand. But what can he gain from it? Knowles lowered his head to look at Daisy. She was lying in his arms, as docile as a little kitten. He helped her collect her hair behind her ears and said, "All media outlets want to know who I am. If he finds out my identity faster than the media, he can sell the information he gains to the media. This way, both the media and he will be able to gain something from it. Don't forget that he's a celebrity, so it's never wrong for them to maintain a good relationship with the media. I think he's trying to whitewash his reputation through the media." Understanding soon dawned upon Edison. It was only now that he realized what Mitchell was trying to do. Knowles was right. It was very important for artists in the entertainment industry to keep a good relationship with the media. This was because there were a lot of B or C listers who got their reputations ruined by the media, especially the paparazzi because they disrespected them. It was said that the best paparazzo in Bassburg could even get hold of a celebrity's private life. It also went without saying that some of the artists were not afraid of the paparazzi. One of the reasons was that they had not done anything wrong, and the second reason was that most of the A-listers had influential supporters. Those paparazzi would try to steer away from them since they knew they couldn't afford to offend them. On the contrary, artists with bad reputations would have a harder time. They could only bribe the paparazzi to seal their mouths if they did not want to get into trouble. Mitchell did not get shunned by Zester, but due to that incident, he was downgraded to a B- or C-lister. What he needed the most was a chance to whitewash his reputation through the media. The car soon arrived at Taylorton. Knowles carried Daisy down from the car and went into the villa. Daisy wrapped her arms around his neck and rubbed her cheek against his chest. He put her on the bed and helped her take off her shoes. "I don't understand why you still want to drink so much even though you know you can't handle liquor that well." "Nolly," he sat by the bed and stroked her cheek with his palm. "Yes, I'm here." Daisy turned around and rubbed her cheek against his palm as she mumbled, "I like you very, very, very much, so please don't leave me again." He was stunned and looked at her intently. After a long while, he planted a kiss on her forehead and said, "Don't worry." Chapter 1922. The next morning. After Daisy woke up, she went downstairs and was welcomed by the fragrance of fried eggs. Knowles was standing in the kitchen. While he was transferring the eggs from the pan to the plate, a pair of arms hugged him from the back. He was stunned for a moment and then turned his head around and smiled. "Morning." She leaned against his broad back, feeling his body warmth. "Morning," he said gently, "go get yourself cleaned. Breakfast is ready." Daisy went upstairs to clean herself up. After changing into a set of new clothes, she went downstairs again. Knowles had already served all of the dishes on the table. There was porridge, a few slices of bread, ham, and a sunny side up. She pulled the chair and sat down. Feeling a little bit embarrassed, she said, "Nolly, actually, you don't have to wake up so early every day to prepare breakfast for me. I can do it myself." He chuckled and pushed the porridge to her. "It's okay. I enjoy preparing breakfast for you." Daisy looked at him. Knowles was too perfect. It seemed to her that he did not have any flaw at all, no matter how hard she tried to look for it. He was gentle and attentive. Not only that, but he was good at taking care of other people. It was rather difficult not to fall in love with him. Knowles raised his hand and rubbed her cheek. "What's wrong?" She pressed her lips tightly and lowered her head. "I don't even know what to do after you've done everything for me." Knowles went closer to her and said, "When you're at home, you don't have to do anything, Daisy. I didn't marry you just because I want you to become my maid. But you're taking care of me like I'm a baby." Daisy lowered her head to eat the porridge, her cheeks red. She did not like this feeling at all. Knowles was doing everything for her while she just needed to sit back and relax. "I must come home early tonight and prepare dinner for him." After they finished their breakfast, Knowles brought her to her company like he always did. Meanwhile, the chairman's car was parked not far away from them. When he saw Daisy coming out of Knowles' car, he was stunned. "The driver, isn't he Knowles' assistant?" Daisy did not notice the chairman and entered the elevator first. The chairman walked over to the car, and the window rolled down slowly. Sitting at the back of the car, Knowles looked at him and nodded. The chairman smiled and replied, "It really is you, Mr. Knowles." He already knew that Knowles was Daisy's fiancé. Therefore, he did not feel surprised when Daisy announced that she was engaged. However, he felt curious. Now all media outlets are guessing who Daisy's boyfriend is. Why don't you announce your relationship with Daisy? After all, it seems to me that it won't affect you much even if you make it public. Daisy was the daughter of the Goldmans. It wouldn't affect her career in the entertainment industry even if her relationship with Knowles were exposed. Besides, she was a good actress with great acting skills and not an idol who knew nothing. Besides, even if it would affect her career, it wouldn't affect her future at all, considering the Goldmans' business empire. They did not make their marriage public. All media outlets were working their very best to find out who her boyfriend was. The more they couldn't get any information about him, the more impatient they became. They knew that it would take some time before the media finally stopped. Knowles smiled faintly. "I'm more suitable to become the man who supports her from the back. I'm fine even if no one knows I'm her husband." The chairman felt a chill down his spine as goosebumps erupted on his skin. He did not come here to get himself tortured by their love. "It seems you like your fiancé very much, Mr. Knowles." "Of course, I am." The chairman did not want to talk to him anymore. When he was about to leave, Knowles suddenly asked, "Sir, there's one thing I want you to do for me." Chapter 1923. Mitchell from Zester is looking for my identity. I think he wants to get back on his feet by selling my information to the media, but I can't come forward and settle the problem. The chairman understood what Knowles wanted. "So, you want me to help you settle this problem?" He nodded. "You're the chairman of Tenet Media, and you're considered an influential figure in the entertainment industry. You're the best candidate to step in and solve this problem," and he paused for a few seconds and rhythmically tapped on the mirror's side. "If Mitchell manages to get back on his feet through the media, it'll also affect Tenet Media. After all, I'm the one who exposed the scandal between him and Susan." Besides, I am a shareholder of Tenet, and the public might not be happy when they learn about it. The chairman knew what he was talking about. Mitchell had bullied Daisy while shooting the film together. Initially, it was just a small matter, but after the incident went out of hand and he was exposed for lying to his fans, he got punished by Zester. Knollys was one of the shareholders of Tenet. He did not want to reveal his identity because he did not want Daisy to know that Tenet had any cooperation with the Goldmans, and Daisy had come here because she wanted to prove to everyone she could get the Best Actress award without the help of her family. She had been getting a lot of attention ever since she joined the entertainment industry because of her identity. Once Mitchell sold the information to the media and made them happy, they would be very much willing to help him clear his name. At that time, Knollys' identity would be exposed. Once everyone knew that Daisy's boyfriend was one of Tenet's shareholders, even if nobody was going to suspect anything, there would always be a group of people who tried to pull her down from her throne by smearing her name. No matter what Daisy did or who she was an artist under Tenet. Not only that, but she had brought a lot of profit to Tenet, and it went without saying that Tenet would do everything they could to protect their artist. The chairman nodded and said yes. Meanwhile, Mitchell came to a coffee shop. He walked up to a booth on the second floor, and the woman sitting in the seat had her face fully covered. It was only when Mitchell appeared that she took off her scarf. It was Susan. "Why are you looking for me now? Do you think I'm not fucked up enough?" Zester had abandoned her, and she couldn't work at all. She wanted to terminate her contract with Zester but couldn't afford to pay the penalty of $500,000. As for Mitchell, Zester had decided to give him a second chance because he was an A-lister. Even though he did not get many resources right now, at the very least, he could still continue to work. Mitchell sat down and said, "Well, you can't blame me on that. You took advantage of me as well, remember?" "Are you here to laugh at me?" snarled Susan. "Of course, I'm not." Mitchell smiled. "I'm here to give you a chance." "Give me a chance?" she asked with a frown. "We're not a match for Daisy, and we can only blame our fate for ending up like this. Don't you want to terminate your contract with Zester? You have a chance right now." "What do you mean?" Susan was skeptical. Mitchell continued. "The media now want to know who Daisy's boyfriend is. If you can find out who he is and sell his information to the media, you won't have to worry about the fee you have to pay for terminating your contract." Susan was stunned. She had been reading a lot of news lately, so she knew that Daisy had announced her engagement. The media went to great lengths to get the information about Daisy's boyfriend, but if someone could get his identity faster than them, the media would buy the information. However, she thought of something and said, "Why should I trust you? Besides, do you think those people are idiots? There's no way they would give me so much money just to get the identity of one person." "That's right. No one will be willing to pay $500,000 for a person's identity." Mitchell looked at her and grinned. "Those official media outlets won't pay this much, but how about those guys in the private sector? Are you sure they're not interested?" Susan took a deep breath. Many people worked in the private sector, such as the paparazzi. Many paparazzi's companies also worked as private investigators. In particular, those rich people would hire them to help them gather some information, and they would pay them handsomely. In other words, they were not short of money at all. Chapter 1924. Susan did not want to wait until her contract expired. This was because it would be too late, and she wouldn't have any chance anymore if she returned to the entertainment industry at that time. She did not have a good family background like Daisy did. She had to rely on herself to get the things she wanted, so now that there was a chance in front of her, she had to grab it. "All right. I'll help you." Mitchell stretched his arm forward and put it above her hand. Then, he said meaningfully, "I've already helped you, Susan. It's time for you to help me back." When Susan saw that he still wanted to take advantage of her when she was at the bottom of the barrel, she felt disgusted. However, she had to hold back her anger as she still needed him. Charlie handed the script of the variety show to Daisy. Daisy took it, flipped through it, and then she was stunned. "What is this?" Charlie said, "Our chairman wants you to participate in this variety show. Right now, all media outlets are guessing who your boyfriend's fiancé is, so rather than letting Mitchell expose it, you should do it yourself." Besides, it carried a different meaning if she explained the whole thing herself on the variety show, including the reason she did not want to tell everyone who Knollys was. By doing this, she could at least stop the media and the netizens from guessing Knollys' identity. Later, even if Mitchell sold the information to the media, that would be considered illegal, since he would be exposing other people's information without their consent. People would criticize him for his actions, and his reputation in the entertainment industry would be ruined. When that happened, he wouldn't be able to get back on his feet anymore. The official media outlets wouldn't buy the information because they knew it was illegal. As for those guys from the private sector, they might buy the information from Mitchell because they wanted to gain attention, but it would be a hot potato for them. Daisy nodded in assent and smiled. "Sure. I'll go get myself ready." By the time she returned to her office, the first thing she saw was James's circling around Freya like a bee surrounding a flower. He threw her all sorts of questions like what she liked eating, if she was hungry, and if she needed him to pack any food for her. He even introduced the restaurants he frequented to her. Standing by the door, Daisy asked, "James, do you not have anything better to do?" James was stunned for a moment, and then he grinned from ear to ear. "I'm just helping you to take care of your friend. Look at her, she has so much stuff to do. Don't you think it's tiring?" Freya raised her head to look at him and shook her head helplessly before turning her head back to her work. Daisy came into the office and lifted her leg to kick him. "Stop disturbing her." He evaded her kick and pointed at her. "Daisy, can't you learn from Freya? Look at how gentle she is." Daisy stood with her arms on her waist and said, "That's because you've never seen Freya lose her temper." "Yes, I've never seen it before. I've only seen you lose your temper." After he finished speaking, he crossed his arms in front of his chest and gazed at Daisy with a look of disgust. "I don't know what your fiancé likes about you. I feel so sorry for him. It's none of your business." Both of them looked like two primary students bickering against each other, and it reminded her of the time when she was arguing with Colton. She did not know why, but she felt they looked the same. After Daisy sent James away, silence finally returned to the office. She walked to the table and put down the script. "It seems like this fellow is trying to challenge my second brother." Initially, she did not know about the things between Freya and Colton, so she thought Freya and James might work something out. However, since her brother had made a move on Freya first, her friend did not have any chance anymore. Freya lifted her eyelids and said, "Daisy, I thought you were on my side. Why are you helping your brother now?" She still couldn't forget that Daisy had messaged Colton to come to the villa that day. Daisy turned her head around and forced a smile on her face. "Don't say that, Freya. I'm not helping my second brother at all." She walked up to Freya and wrapped her arm around hers. "Don't worry." Chapter 1925. Just when Freya was about to say something, her phone rang. She pulled her phone out, and she was stunned. It was Colton. Daisy glanced at her phone and smiled. "Well, speak of the devil." Freya went outside of the office to answer the phone. Daisy knew that Freya wouldn't dare to answer the phone in front of her, so she did not follow after her. When she turned around, she accidentally knocked the purse off the table. When she squatted down to pick the purse from the floor, a box of contraceptive pills fell out of the purse. Daisy picked the box of pills up and was stunned. Freya returned to the office after finishing the call. She saw that Daisy was reading her script behind the table, so she did not disturb her. Daisy looked at Freya. She was busy working in front of her computer. When the box of pills came into her mind, she pressed her lips tightly. She wanted to ask Freya about it, but she couldn't muster enough strength to ask the question. Perhaps she and her second brother did not want any children because they were still young. However, she didn't expect Freya and her brother to have already reached that stage, while she and Knowles hadn't even hit third base yet, even though they had already married. At night, Knowles picked Daisy up from her work as usual. After getting into the car, Daisy kept looking outside through the mirror. She didn't talk to Knowles at all and seemed distracted. When Knowles finished his work, he closed his laptop and turned his head to look at her. Daisy. Daisy retracted her gaze and asked, "Have you finished your work?" Knowles grabbed her into his arms and kissed the top of her head. "I'm sorry, Daisy. I know I've been neglecting you these few days, because of my work. I promise I'll make it up for you after I've finished my work." He was worried that Daisy might think too much and feel insecure. Daisy's eyelashes fluttered upon leaning on his chest, and she asked, "Nolly, can I ask you a question?" He lowered his head to look at her. "Yeah? What is it?" Daisy went closer to him and whispered the question into his ear. "Why don't you?" An awkward atmosphere suddenly enveloped the car. It was quiet in the car, so Edison could hear the thing that Daisy said to Knowles, and his eyes widened in shock. Both of them are married, but they haven't. How is this possible? Could it be that Mr. Knowles lowered his head to look at Daisy. Daisy did not want to meet his gaze, so she turned her head away, her face turning red with embarrassment. "I knew it. I shouldn't have talked about it." However, she felt it was strange. They slept and ate in the same house. They had kissed and hugged each other before, but Knowles always stopped at the last step. Could it be that he found her unattractive? Knowles couldn't help himself and chuckled when he saw how embarrassed and flustered Daisy was. He went closer to her and replied, "That's because I love you." Daisy was stunned. She raised her head to look at him and could see her reflection in his light-colored irises. She knew he was not lying when he said he loved her. After all, she could clearly sense how Knowles felt about her. But Colton and Freya, he placed his finger on her lips and said, "Every man has his own way of expressing his love. Your brother is your brother, and I am me. I will never force the woman I love to do anything she doesn't want. I don't want her to feel even the slightest bit of pain and sadness." Daisy blinked her eyes. Knowles was really good at love-talking. It hit right in her heart. He rubbed her cheeks with his hand and chuckled. "Besides, you're at the prime of your career right now, so I think you wouldn't want to have a baby yet, right?" She had the same consideration as well. It was just that she did not expect him to be so thoughtful. He even took her career into consideration. A man like him was very rare, yet she was lucky enough to find one. Suddenly, she remembered something and said, "I can take contraceptive pills." Chapter 1926. Knowles paused for a split second and frowned. "She's taking pills?" Daisy lowered her gaze. "It should be because Colton and Freya don't want a baby just yet. That's why she's taking those pills." Knowles stared at her. This silly girl is really too innocent and simple when it comes to this aspect of life. I'd love to enlighten her right here if it weren't because it's not the right time now. He gently rubbed the tip of her nose. "Dummy, taking those pills is very harmful to a woman's body, and it'll leave a great impact on a woman's fertility in the future. If Colton cares about Freya, he'll definitely not allow her to take pills." Daisy was dumbfounded. Could it be that Freya is secretly taking them without letting Colton know about it? Knowles nodded. Probably so. Late at night, Knowles stood behind the French windows, starting over the dark and quiet courtyard. He glanced down at the text message on the screen of his phone. "Sorry, Mr. Knowles, we haven't found Mr. Matthews's body yet." Knowles' expression dimmed gradually while looking at the text message. Donald's arrogant voice when he was arrested echoed in his mind. Knowles, do you think you're a man of no weaknesses? I refuse to believe that you'll never find a woman that you love in your life. Ha 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 ha. You'd better not let me see you get married and have kids. When that happens, and I'm still alive, you'd better not fall into my hands. Otherwise, I'll repay everything that you did to me today. I swear this on my name. Knowles clenched the phone tightly and turned to look at Daisy, who was sleeping soundly. He walked to the edge of the bed, sat down, gently stroked her cheek with his palm, and stared at her sleeping face. If it weren't for the fear that Donald might still be alive and take revenge on those I care about from the shadows, I wouldn't have kept my identity a secret while I'm in Bassburg. And the reason I don't disclose my marriage with Daisy is just to protect her. The next day, Daisy looked guilty when she arrived at the company. She had claimed yesterday she would cook for Noel Ace, but she totally forgot about it. I have to make it up for him tonight. She entered the studio, but instead of seeing Freya, she saw a woman furtively rummaging for something. Daisy was vigilant. "Who are you, and what are you looking for?" The woman froze in place as if she did not expect someone to appear at this time, and she did not look back. I'm here to look for information." "Which studio are you from, and what information are you looking for? Why don't you tell me?" Daisy approached her and lifted her hand, trying to grab her shoulder. The woman suddenly turned around and tried to knock Daisy down to escape the scene, but unexpectedly, Daisy was agile enough to dodge her. The woman lost balance as she pounced on no one. She fell to the ground, got up in embarrassment, and ran immediately. Daisy reached out and grabbed her. And while she resisted, she accidentally undid the hood she had on. Daisy saw her face. "Susan?" Susan flung her hand off. "So what if it's me?" Daisy crossed her arms. "You're so brave that you actually tried to sneak into Tenet and got into my studio? What are you looking for?" Susan bit her lip. "Since I've been caught red-handed, things might get messy if this incident escalates to Tenet's top management. Anyway, Daisy is the only person here now, so everything will be fine as long as I manage to calm her down." She knelt in front of Daisy, cried out loud, and explained, "Mitchell is the one who asked me to do this. He asked me to infiltrate your studio to see if I could get my hands on any information that would reveal your fiancé's identity. Daisy, he's the one who forced me to do this, so please don't tell others about this, and just pretend that I haven't come here today. I'm begging you, please." Susan crawled to her feet, grabbed onto the hem of her trousers, and pleaded. Her cries would soften anybody's determination. Chapter 1927. Daisy burst into laughter and played the video recording that she recorded on her phone to Susan. "I wonder what Mitchell will think when he sees this." Susan's expression changed instantly, and she rushed forward to snatch the phone. Daisy stepped back and put her hands behind her back. Susan threw herself into nothing and growled unwillingly, "Daisy Vanderbilt. How could you treat me like this? I've already begged you in such a manner. What do you want from me?" Daisy took back the phone and glanced at her. "Are you really begging me? You're only forced to beg me because I caught you in the act, isn't that right?" Susan's eyes turned bloodshot. "What's the difference? Daisy Vanderbilt, I've been shelved by Zester and have reached this point in my life. What else do you want me to do?" "Yeah, you've reached this point, but you still refuse to stop." Daisy laughed. "Then why should I do as you wish?" She walked to the desk and called the front desk on the landline. Susan's face turned pale, and she dashed over, intending to stop her. Daisy pushed her away with one hand, and Susan lost her balance and fell to the floor. Daisy said something to the front desk, hung up the call, and looked at Susan, who looked embarrassed and flustered. "It doesn't matter if it's you or Mitchell. You can forget about getting your hands on any information about my husband. I don't care if you've been shelved or banned by the whole entertainment industry. I have only 3 words for you, and that's, you deserve it." Susan was trembling with anger and was at a loss. Billy quickly went upstairs with a few security guards and arrived at the door. And he really found an outsider in the studio. The guards took Susan out of the room, and Billy was startled. "It's you?" Daisy stood at the door and said, "Susan snuck into Tenet and tried to steal from my studio. Fortunately, I didn't lose anything of great importance. Taking Miss Hodge's reputation into consideration, there's no need to report this incident to the police, just hand her back to Zester and let them handle the rest of the matter." The guards took Susan away. Seeing this, Billy felt puzzled. "What did Susan come to your studio to steal?" She replied, "It's information about my husband." Billy was surprised, but did not utter a single word. Every media outlet is curious about Daisy's man, but Susan did not only sneak into Tenet but also snuck into Daisy's studio, and she's done all that just to get her hands on some information about Daisy's man? "By the way, Mr. Gray, can you do me a favor?" asked Daisy. Billy asked, "What's that?" Daisy sent the video that she had recorded to Billy. "Please help me bring this video to Mr. Johnson. He'll take care of the rest." Billy received it from her, watched it, and nodded. On the other side of town, in the Seaview Villa. When Freya woke up, it was already 9 a.m. She turned to look at the vacant space beside her and thought Colton had already left for work. She got up to get a glass of warm water and opened the drawer of the bedside table to get the box of medicine. As soon as she took the pill, she noticed Colton had appeared at the door at some point in time. "Are you sick?" She was frightened and almost choked on the pill, so she quickly took a gulp of water, swallowed it, and turned to look at him in surprise. "You actually haven't left?" Colton crossed his arms and stared at her. "You want to drive me away?" Freya did not say a word, quietly shoved the box of medicine back into the drawer, and got out of bed. "Who in the world can do that to you?" He approached her and placed the back of his hand on her forehead. This move left her in a daze. He then frowned. "It doesn't look like you're sick either." Freya was at a loss for words. She lowered her head and looked away. Chapter 1928. Freya pushed him away and went out in a fit of anger. "I didn't expect you to make me breakfast either." Colton watched as she left the room, and his gaze immediately shifted back to the drawer. Freya went downstairs and was astonished when she saw the breakfast that had been prepared on the dining table. She really did not expect Colton to make breakfast for her, but she did not expect that he would actually do it. This fella, apart from having an irritating mouth, everything else is fine with him. Colton walked downstairs unhurriedly and stared at the person eating breakfast in the living room with a slightly complicated expression. She didn't take the pills because she's sick. She's taking them for contraceptive purposes. "Even though I don't plan to have any children just yet, it would not be unacceptable to me if an accident were to happen. However, is she so resistant to bearing a baby for me?" Freya saw him standing in place, looking a little bothered, paused for a bit, and then asked, "Why are you looking at me like that?" Colton did not say anything, walked up to the couch, picked up his jacket, and left without uttering a single word. He then slammed the door rather heavily. Freya frowned. What's with that bad temper of his again? At noon, Freya went directly to the recording site of the show. Daisy was sitting backstage and going through the manuscript while the makeup artist was applying her makeup for her. Freya placed the coffee she had bought along the way on the counter. Daisy lifted her head, looked at her in the mirror, and grinned. "Did you bring me coffee? I was afraid you'd be drowsy after recording the show for so long." She pulled out a chair and sat down. Daisy responded, "It's only going to take 4 hours. It's not too long." The makeup artist left after putting on makeup for Daisy. Daisy then took a sip of coffee and thought of something. "Freya, do you want a baby?" Freya could not help but freeze in place and avoid her gaze subconsciously. "Why would you ask me this all of a sudden?" Daisy did not tell her that she knew about the pills she was taking. "I'm just curious." She lowered her gaze. "I'm still young, so I'm not considering this for the time being." As soon as she answered the question, she looked at Daisy. "What about you? You've gotten married to Nolace now, so I guess it's about time, right?" Daisy's cheeks flushed instantly, and she turned her face away. "We haven't even," Freya was astounded. "What?" Daisy pursed her lips, feeling rather ashamed to be sharing this. "Yeah, nothing has happened between the two of us yet." Although nothing too explicit was brought up, Freya had already guessed it. She seemed surprised. "Haven't you guys gotten married officially?" Daisy nodded and lowered her gaze. "Nolace is concerned about my career." Freya chuckled. Indeed, your career is ascending at the moment. If you want to have kids, you'll have to take a break for at least 2 to 3 years. And when you come back, you might not be able to maintain your current popularity. However, she paused for a few seconds and rubbed her chin. Even if you don't want to have kids now, it's not a reason for him to live like a monk, is it? Or is it because he's lacking in that department? No, Lace likes Daisy so much, to the extent that he would do anything to get her to get married to him. As such, that shouldn't be the case. He can actually be that indifferent when the woman he loves is lying by his side every night. Daisy choked on her coffee, and her cheeks became even warmer than they already were. About that, how would I know that? Freya approached her. Do you love him? She did not even hesitate before answering, of course. Freya immediately suggested, then you should take the initiative. She wondered. How can I take the initiative? As soon as Freya whispered something to her in her ear, Daisy was shocked, and her cheeks flushed even more. No way. Must I do that? Freya smirked. If he can still maintain his composure, the only explanation will be that something's wrong with him in that department. Daisy covered her warm cheeks and held a question in for a long time before she asked, so do you do the same with Colton? Freya's smile stiffened, and she got up. I'm not going to talk to you anymore. She then went straight out. Daisy laughed out loud. Chapter 1929. The program recording started, and Daisy sat on the stage, responding fluently to all kinds of questions the host asked her. Sure enough, her husband was something that would definitely be brought up. However, Daisy answered the question with a smile. I've known him since I was a kid. The host was surprised. So, are you two childhood sweethearts? Daisy responded calmly, that's right, but we were separated for a long time until we met again back then. The host continued to ask, then did you get married because it's a marriage arranged by both families, or is it because of your personal feelings for each other? Daisy chuckled. It's not an arranged marriage. It's just our personal feelings. The host added, since you're married officially and legally, why didn't you choose to make it public? Are you worried that it'll affect his personal life? Daisy laughed and teased. Because my husband is just way too brilliant to be real, I don't want to get him exposed. Otherwise, what will I do if all I get in return are heaps and heaps of love rivals? However, although it's a joke, I hope that everyone will stop trying to expose him from today onward, as this will put a lot of pressure on him. Please, let's just allow him to remain mysterious. After recording the program, Daisy bid farewell to the host and walked off stage. Freya stepped forward and reached out to help her down the steps. On the way back to the company, Daisy scrolled through her cell phone to go through some of the news. And it seemed that Charlie had stepped in, and Zester Media was quick at resolving the problem. The news of Susan being banned by Zester had appeared at the top of the list of trending topics of the day, and her acting career could be regarded as completely over. As for the culprit behind the whole shenanigan, Mitchell was exposed for bribing the paparazzi and harassing female artists. In just a few hours, many companies which had cooperated with Mitchell in endorsement collaborations had asked to terminate their contracts with him. A group of reporters was gathered at the entrance of his apartment. Mitchell stood behind the window and looked downstairs. He looked depressed. Dozens of calls came in from his agent, and he did not answer any of them, nor did he read any of his text messages. The last text message lit up the screen of the phone. The agency has run out of ideas to help you this time. We had already done everything that we could to protect you at the beginning. But since you don't know how to stay put and act properly, I truly have nothing else to say. Mitchell swept everything off the table, and all the items dropped onto the floor, some of them even shattered. His gaze looked gloomy and ruthless. Susan Hodge, that whore. I shouldn't have relied on her to help me with the task. And Daisy Vanderbilt, I'll never let this slide, you bitch. At Black Gold. Leonardo handed Colton all the information he had found about Yanis Tech Company. Mr. Goldman, these are the projects and series of developments Janus Tech Company went through in the past 2 years, and I've found something very interesting. Colton frowned. What's that? Leonardo explained. Before Janus Tech was established, the previous company's name was known as the World Trade Pinnacle, and Donald Matthews was one of its shareholders. It said that after Donald Matthews was arrested, the World Trade Pinnacle collapsed due to insufficient funds and was later acquired by the Knowles Group. Colton squinted slightly. The Knowles Group, that's the enterprise that belongs to the Knowles. Could it be that Janus Tech Company was founded by that bastard from the Knowles? Seeing that he did not speak, Leonardo cautiously asked, Mr. Knowles is now your brother-in-law, isn't he? Seeing Colton lift his eyelids, Leonardo lowered his head and exited the office very consciously. However, as soon as he arrived at the door, Colton stopped him. He turned around. Is there anything else that you need me to do? Colton held his hands together, interlocked his fingers, placed them against his lips, and frowned. If your wife doesn't want to be pregnant with your child, what do you think is the reason? Leonardo was at a loss for words. Why would he ask me such a personal question? Leonardo scratched his cheek, looking embarrassed. I think the problem should come from the man. Colton's expression dimmed. It comes from the man? Leonardo asked weakly, are they married? Colton paused for a split second and lowered his gaze. No. Okay, if they're still not married, how can he expect his woman to get pregnant for him? Although it's normal for women to get pregnant before marriage nowadays, it's still not something that will positively impact a woman's reputation. Chapter 1930. Leonardo was only telling the truth, but after saying so, he realized that Colton's expression did not look too satisfied with his answer. He returned to his senses in an instant. Mr. Goldman, is the man that you're referring to yourself? I'm asking it on behalf of someone else. He interrupted him impatiently. Leonardo responded, then I'll take my leave first. Colton did not say anything about Leonardo leaving the office, so he cautiously closed the door and left. Colton leaned back in his chair, lost in thought. Does Freya think so too? Is she afraid that I won't hold myself accountable if she gets pregnant? Is that why she's taking those pills? After all, I can't really blame her for taking those pills. It's all my fault. I've never done anything to protect her and care about her feelings. She probably thinks of me as a scumbag now. Leonardo returned to his office and realized that someone was waiting for him. He paused for a split second. Miss Peterson? Giselle stood up slowly. Mr. Pritchard. Leonardo walked up to his desk, pulled out the chair, and sat down. Are you here for me? Yes. She smiled. Thank you for guiding me throughout this period. Leonardo felt a little embarrassed. You don't have to be so polite when you're with me. She placed the precious gift she had brought along on the desk, and Leonardo stood up in fear. Miss Peterson, what do you mean by this? Giselle pushed the gift across the desk and explained, it's just a small gift, only to show my appreciation for you. I hope you'll accept it. Leonardo pushed it back. That's not how things work between us. I can't accept such an expensive gift from you. Giselle sounded helpless and determined. Mr. Pritchard, please accept it. I won't feel at ease if you refuse to accept it. Leonardo did not know what to do. Don't worry. I won't tell Mr. Goldman about this. After all, I don't want to get you fired because of the gift. Giselle had thought about every single detail, so even though Leonardo was worried, seeing her resolution, it would be rude for him to reject her any further. As such, he could only accept it. I'll accept it. If you ever need any of my help in the future, just come to me. I'll do my best to help you out. Giselle sat back in the chair. There's indeed something that I want to ask you for some information. Leonardo asked immediately, what's the matter? Giselle did not beat around the bush and asked him directly, Mr. Goldman has a woman that he likes, is that right? Leonardo was astonished as if he did not expect she would ask him something about his employer. Miss Peterson, in fact, I don't know that very well. This can't be regarded as his privacy, but if Mr. Goldman had a woman he liked, I'd have learned about it since long ago. Giselle lowered her gaze. Even you don't know about that? I know more about Mr. Goldman's work, but when it comes to his private life, I really don't know much about him. After explaining his relationship with his employer, he seemed to have remembered something. However, Mr. Goldman just asked me a question outside of work earlier today. Her eyes lit up instantly. What's the question? He supported his chin and said, he asked me what may be the reason if a woman doesn't want to conceive a man's child. He told me that he was asking it on behalf of someone else. This is my first time getting a question that's not work-related from Mr. Goldman. After all, it was the first time, so he was surprised. After listening to those words, Giselle lowered her gaze. He asked Leonardo these things at work. Would Coleman even waste his time on other people's affairs? My intuition tells me he wasn't asking it for someone else, but himself. Giselle left Black Gold, probably because she was very concerned about this matter. She picked up her cell phone and made a call. Are you a private investigator? I need you to help me investigate something. As for how much it'll cost, your pay will definitely not be too shabby. In the evening, back in Taylorton, Daisy hurried back to the villa earlier than her usual schedule, put on an apron in the kitchen, flipped through the recipe, and started preparing dinner.